All right. This is part two of episode 18 of Uncommon Conversations. Today's guest is Angel. The man's brilliant. The man is well read. We're in the midst of an interesting little point, so I'm not going to rant too much. I'm waiting for him to come in here. He'll be here soon, and then we'll get after it. Hello, Italian ex churro. There we go. All right, we're back.
All right, how's it going, man?
Good, good man. All
Long
right,
time no see.
it's been ages, sir, ages. So where were we? I'm sorry, I got.
So yeah, talking about the bell curve, the Democrat Party already being infiltrated by their progressive, supposedly populist kind of movement, and the GOP now being the last way, the last opportunity for us to have an actual, populist movement occur because they're open to it. And this is something I've had discussions with people like the Lexit founders, the Lexit board of directors. They were real gun ho about working with the GOP, but the GOP and the Republicans they're kind of making the same mistake as the Democrats, right? They're doing a little bit of pandering, and it's all about like, oh, we got the black vote and this and that, and well, you got an overwhelming
And
number
you
of
do have like Trumpian rhinos like Matt Gaetz. I feel like Matt Gaetz just says whatever Trump fans want to hear. I don't feel like he's all about it. He seems like just a mouthpiece, and we got to be careful about those guys too because they can be sold out and their vote can sway when it really counts.
sure, and the thing is that there's a lot of us that we really just want effective policy to be in place. We really just want what's kind of best for, generally speaking, for the country. And when people are playing into the partisan roles, it kind of takes away from that. It takes away from our ability to even be able to have that discussion at times, it's counterproductive. So
By
one of the
definition, if those ideologies or those frameworks, if by definition, if they're interrupting our discussions about what's best for the people, they're working towards
counterproductive.
other ends.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So the crazy thing is I've had these conversations, like I said, with a lot of people where they're just kind of like, and I've told them before because I had a discussion with two of the members of the board with Lexit one day. We're on a phone call, and I said, I want to just be real clear that I fully represent myself here when I say this, but I don't think there's any home in the GOP for people like us, and I'm not talking about Latin people. I'm talking about people who really want to see effective change occur because the GOP is part of the establishment. Like there's no way around that. So the only thing I think that would be in effect bring about effective change is there does have to be like you said, they're open because they allowed Trump to come in. He was much a disruptor, and we kind of need disruptors. What I've seen happen here in my state, in Arizona, has been a split of the conservative votes. It's turning blue. Democrats are taking over because we had the GOP mistreating some of the primary candidates for Senate. I'm speaking specifically about Daniel McCarthy, and I want to put that out there because I know Daniel
Who?
personally. Daniel McCarthy.
Daniel McCarthy.
And I want to put that out there right now because I'm not scared to speak on this issue. Daniel McCarthy is a friend of mine. I love Daniel McCarthy. I interviewed him on my YouTube channel. He's a true patriot. He's a true conservative. He has a website, by the way, you guys can check out called stoptherhinos.com. And I think you'd enjoy that. But, what I've seen happen here in Arizona is that once his run for Senate was botched by the GOP itself, when they avoided any opportunity to have a candid discussion with or debate between him, the other primary candidates, and Martha McSally, they protected the establishment and this, rhino governor appointed senator, and it ended up costing the votes, costing them the seat because I wrote Daniel McCarthy's name in. I didn't vote for Martha McSally. I voted for her in 2018. In 2020, I wrote Daniel McCarthy's name. Why? because I knew more about both of them now at this point, and Martha McSally I felt was just nowhere near in tune with the people and what the people needs are as Daniel was, who was still look,
We
man, I've
can't
been
trade off left-wing elitists for right-wing elitists.
exactly, bro. And I've been to lockdown protests and events, bro. Daniel was there. Daniel was willing to talk to him. I only got 1,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel. He was willing to go on my YouTube and talk to me. He took time out of his day, and he's running like 10 businesses, real estate investing, running
Well,
for
bro, I
Senate.
got 61 and you came on here, so I got 61 YouTube subscribers. So I
Well, that's all good,
can
man.
appreciate the kind of love you're showing me and that
Yeah,
he
no, I
showed
mean
you.
that's the thing is like it's just we got to keep the conversations going. It doesn't matter how many people are listening. What matters is that we got to keep the conversations going.
Yeah.
And it's all about the movement. And Daniel embodied that idea. And I mean, this dude was awesome. So on the 4th of July, our governor here told us we couldn't visit our family. We had to stay indoors on the 4th of July, right? Well, where was he on the 4th of July? You want to take a guess?
With his family.
Friends and
Or,
family at a
yeah.
party. No masks, no social distancing, right? So my boy Daniel, bro, Daniel McCarthy, he threw a party, he threw a big barbecue at a park directly across the street from the governor's office in Phoenix, bro. Patriot barbecue, boy.
That's
4th of July.
savage. Ooh, I
Yeah.
like this guy. That won me over. That one fact won me over.
Hey, that was a big one for me too, and I got invited to go, but I couldn't make it. I ended up visiting family here in town because we were like, fuck that Ducey, we're gonna do whatever we want, and so we were visiting family. But while I was there at my family's house, I'm watching a live video on Facebook of people at the event. I'm like, man, it looks like it's popping. Well, I'm watching this lady's live when all of a sudden she's like, people start talking, like clamoring, and she's like, what's going on? And they look, and there was a protest heading their way, bro. People with signs and stuff like that. It was a Black Lives Matter protest. They were escorted to the park by Phoenix Police Department. This was all caught on video, bro. This is all on live on Facebook. I'm watching it happen live. They don't even know what the event is. They're there protesting and yelling at people, and they got signs, Black Lives Matter and stuff. And the lady walks up to them and is like, what are you even here
When you
for?
got these NPC marchers, you can do that, man. You just got to tell them it's the racist, right-winger, alt-right, xenophobes
exactly.
over there. Go.
Now,
Attack.
if you look at like AZ Central and other mainstream news articles here in the state, they definitely talk about Daniel and his followers as being white supremacist. 100%, bro. That's their angle. And Daniel has a lot of followers that are very devout, and it happened so much. The movement he started here, bro, where they were like, we need non-rhino, non-establishment, for the people, we the people candidates to run pro-Trump, pro-freedom. And he was willing to be that guy, and he embodied it, and people believed in him. And then the GOP sends out these pamphlets with all of the candidates that are running for Senate, and they put Daniel McCarthy, Democrat. They listed him as a Democrat. They said it was a typo.
That's some dirty shit, bro. That's some dirty shit.
When Daniel showed up to ask to do a debate with any of the other primary candidates, and they showed up to GOP headquarters in Phoenix, which Republican headquarters. I've been there multiple times. Kelly Ward, I believe, who's the chairwoman of the GOP here. I believe she called the police on them. And Daniel goes live on his Facebook when he does this stuff. So this is all audio, video recorded. This is history, man. And I don't know how they're going to try to spin it, but they called the police on him, a Republican candidate at the Republican National Headquarters, and told him he had to leave. He was trespassing. He went there to ask for a debate. They said, well, these people, this is how they work this angle. These people are disruptors. They're disruptive. They're
Agitators.
basically agitators. Yeah, they're shaking they're shaking the establishment down. What it is they're not following the establishment rule, which is like, you'll sit down and shut up, and we already have who we want to be in place. So what the fuck are we having an election for, dude? Like, why even have a primary? It's like in 2020 nobody was primarying against Trump because they were like, there's no way nobody's gonna beat Trump. He's got more and people still showed up to vote for him in the primary. He still got more primary votes than any other candidate in history, bro. And nobody of those people even had to go. He was it. No one else was on the ticket, so it was crazy. But when you have the GOP,
we saw, and so part of the reason why I went for Trump, now I voted Libertarian because of the Electoral College, because if you get 5% in the national election, you're in the next cycle's debates. But at the time in 2016, I said I would vote for Trump over Clinton if it mattered in California, but it didn't. Obviously, did not. But at that time, I saw, and part of the reason why I saw it is I saw two things that worried me so much. One, the DNC working to get Bernie out of the primaries, working against him. Literally, they did for the delegate determination. They literally had the crowd just yell, "You want Bernie? You want Hillary?" And like 2/3 of the people said Bernie, and they still gave it to Hillary. And that was like how formal the process was. I was like, this is some corrupt, backwards crap. And Bernie spent 6 months telling us how corrupt she was and how she's taken $250,000 speech fees from banks, and then tells us to vote for her in like
Sure,
a
yeah.
week, and clearly
He
looks
vowed.
like he was talked to by someone, you know? And I was like,
So this
I'm
is
out.
this is how the
I'm out.
establishment works, man. This is exactly how it works, bro. Like you will you this is my problem with the political parties. You gotta toe the party lines, bro. It falls, it's thrust upon you as an individual. Guess what, Bernie? You're a registered Democrat. You do whatever the Democrat establishment tells you to do. Or you know what I'm saying? They're calling the
Yeah.
shots.
Or you don't
You
play.
know what I'm saying? So, and that's funny if that and I know that a lot of people were supported Bernie over Hillary. I know that for a fact. What's crazy is that these same people, after he bowed down like that, after he bitched out, a bunch of these same people still supported Bernie in 2020 after he became a millionaire, after he, obviously was an obvious sellout. People were still supporting him,
And he
and
changed a bunch of his views from 2015 to 2019, and like
sure,
none of them knew that.
all his 2016 views were the same as Trump. Those people should have just voted for Trump
The
in
core
2020.
economic trade policies and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, taking us out of
Immigration
the
unlimited, like immigration too fast is an issue. Trade
yeah,
is an issue.
immigration, trade, taking us out of the what is it, the North American whatever.
Oh yeah, yeah. NAFTA,
You know what I'm
North
talking
American
NAFTA,
Free
yeah,
Trade
taking us out of
Agreement.
NAFTA, yeah. So like you had all these similarities between Bernie and Trump, and it's like these guys didn't want to vote for Trump in 2020. They're voting for a candidate who is no longer holding those same values they claimed they supported in 2016. You know what I'm saying? And Trump even told them, like, hey, they knocked your guy Bernie out. What do you got to lose? Come on over. There's plenty of room over here. Vote with me. Vote for me. And so it's a dirty game, man. When partisan politics is involved, it's such a dirty game, and it's something that we need to really be adamant about bringing some change to. So that's one of the reasons why I really love what Daniel McCarthy's done in Arizona. He actually founded or registered the Arizona Patriot Party, right? The Patriot Party is gaining numbers, bro, and the GOP is pissed off because first thing they say is we're splitting the votes. You're going to split the
Oh, okay,
votes,
okay,
right?
gotcha,
That's
gotcha.
their goal.
Okay,
Oh, you're
I should.
splitting the votes.
That was too.
That's
Yeah,
too an answer too quick, bro.
sometimes things are too like obvious of an answer for me to be
Yeah,
like. I'm like, what? But
yeah. You don't want to say
yeah,
the
split in
obvious
the vote.
answer,
Yeah,
right?
that's what
You're
they always say.
splitting.
If you're not voting with either of the two main parties, you're splitting the vote.
Sure. And you know what? I was just like, dude, at this point, after what we saw happen with Trump in the 2020 election, I mean, these people have no spine, dude. What the hell do I want to be aligned with them for? Bring it all down. I'm ready. And maybe that's the wrong way to think about it, or I don't know. I'm not saying it's wrong or right. I'm just saying that's how I felt. And so watching him do it, I was like, yeah, fuck yeah. But now I have a little bit of a different perspective because what you said a moment ago about just before we ended the last live, when you mentioned about getting into the GOP, right, making those fundamental changes and like kind of like an overthrow of the GOP and establishment norms, that's exactly what we need. So when the GOP is saying these people are disruptors, these people are agitators, these people are rocking the boat, guess what, guys? That's who we need. Those are the people we need. So now I'm back to the idea that we take those people. They don't have to sell out any of their principles. Just come right back to the GOP, please. Somebody get those people, bring them right back. Let's walk into the GOP. Let's shake them down, and let's make change where change needs to be made. Because that's the only opportunity we have. Like you said, it's not happening on the Democrat side, and sometimes we need disruptors. We need those people. That's the only way change is going to come about. We're not going to be doing the same things decade after decade and expecting something different to happen. You're going to get the same exact results. So shout out to Daniel McCarthy, by the way, and the Patriot Party out here in Arizona. He's working a lot now with. Do you know who Fog City Midge is? MAGA Midge.
No.
She's another huge influencer as well, and they've been coming out and speaking out against certain things that Trump did and the Republican Party. They're catching a lot of heat for it. I just want anybody who watches this, who's on the right, to kind of approach things with an open mind and understand. I know Daniel personally, and his heart's in the right place. He's extremely intelligent. Nothing he's saying is false. He's not out to defame anybody or discredit anybody. The dude really loves this country, and I think that we need to start paying more attention to people like him all across the country, because I know he's not the only one like that out there. And, there's probably Daniel McCarthy's in every state. We got to find these people, and we got to get them, encourage them and support them and get them running for office. And I do think we need to take back the GOP. I do believe that is our only chance now.
I think it's very important for people to understand two things, and then I'll get into some of the notes I just took about what you said. That at the same time, we must hold all of the people on our side fully accountable and have room in our hearts for forgiveness and understanding. It's very easy to get into purity tests, and it's very easy to give people slack. And you gotta, there's faults in both of those. If you stray into either of those areas, you gotta try to get the in-between where you're accountability, but love, and we love the country. We're all aimed in the same direction. So it's interesting. You talked about, so I've kind of gone through cycles for my own political, when I decide to run, when I decide to pull the trigger on that. Would I go independent? Would I try to elevate the prestige of the Libertarian Party from nothing? Because it's basically nothing right now. There's very little national sort of presence there. Larry Sharpe as the governor attempt in New York was probably our top, the most competent example of a libertarian that's been shown so far. And that's what I mean. There's no good libertarians to follow behind.
You got that guy in California right now. Who's that guy in California? North Star, what's his name?
Oh, I don't know. I'm behind Larry Elder in Cali. I think he's my guy right now. I don't go libertarian. I wasn't big on the party very much. I like the values of the Libertarian Party, but I didn't really know. There's just not much of a party to like, so I'm not super plugged into like what they're doing. And so it was. Do you go?
You might want to actually bring him on the show one day, bro.
Yeah. I'd love to.
Very interesting man to talk to. Yeah, governor. I think his Instagram is WinStar for governor, California governor, something like that. I'll find it. I'll send it to you.
I think the only difference between conservatives and libertarians basically is, do you want to talk about stuff that's not related to government policy, or do you want to talk about stuff that's just related to government policy? Because they all agree on the freedom. It's just some of them want to judge people in their spare time to just make sure everyone's reminded that prostitution isn't the most honorable thing to engage in. Like those people, I just find a waste of time almost entirely. But that's pretty much the distinction between libertarians and conservatives. There's not a lot of conservatives that believe in the government sort of being involved in these things.
I think you're right on that, because the conservatives, bro, will have a lot of influence from, conservative traditional values, which are based on Judeo-Christian values. So you get into like the conversations with like personal, dude, prostitution, drugs, all that stuff. Like I'm open about all that stuff. I'm not saying that I encourage any of it, but I don't think anybody should go to jail for any of that stuff. It's ridiculous. That's between two people or whatever somebody wants to put in their body. It's freedom of choice. The only problem I've had with the libertarian thing is the aspects of it going a little too far right. When I say far right, I mean on the political spectrum, the Overton window we were talking about. Because once you start getting like paleo-libertarianism and like the ANCAP stuff, they're like, well, the government can't say who we can have here and who we can't. So now you're like, okay, open borders and stuff like that. Like I'm not. Yeah. That's the kind of stuff. Like, I'm not. And
so it's interesting. Yeah, there's stuff like I believe. Like again, so I believe first off, the government is just human beings. So like the moral plane we're all operating on, it's not like, well, they use force, and so they're the bad guys, but when I use force, I'm the good guy because I'm doing it for the right reasons. It's like, it's the use of force that's the freaking thing, man.
Yeah.
Like in both cases. But anyway, so humans and humans. And so I went, so I'm like a moderate ANCAP. That's basically the easiest way to understand things a little bit. I thought maybe moderate libertarian for a bit, I'm really just a moderate, but what I mean by this is I went to the ANCAP extreme, but I finally came up with a philosophical objection to the idea of the initiation of force always being immoral. So it came to me this way. with a couple of precepts. One, there's a discernible hierarchy of crime that humans can commit against each other. Theft is not as bad as assault necessarily because it's not your direct person, but it's an extension of your time and your life and yourself. You spend your money and your time to get it. So it's a harm to you, but it's not a harm to your person. Then there's physical assault, and then there's like rape, and then there's like murder, and like and there's a certain sort of stage in that. Somewhere in that gambit is kidnapping and theft, and we need to keep that in mind for the second point. When the government responds to you doing something illegal, it's in the form of fining you, which is a theft of your money, or taking you out of your life and putting you behind a cage, which is kidnapping.
Yep.
If whatever you did is not as bad as those things, and they do that to you in response, the government is making the place a more morally worse place. They're committing a crime against you that is worse than any crime you committed against anyone else. And so when the government is acting strictly within the bounds of getting the murderers and the rapists and the thieves out of society and away from hurting other people, that it's acting within moral bounds and has moral justification with the initiation of force, because in some sense you need to have systems in place to capture the evidence, to control the crime scene, to investigate properly. And these things have to sort of be agreed upon before we can have civil society, not after we've agreed on civil society. That's not how it's emerged in the real world. And humans have a collective identity component to them. And so that's why I'm an individualist, but in the sense of the individual is each individual and all individuals together. And that's captured in the concept of a citizen being equal before the law. And so that equal before the law, and then that hierarchy of crimes point, and that kind of is the government that I believe is morally justifiable. And so that is okay, and beyond that, it kind of gets stupid, including with regulation, because I believe you should say companies should have other companies that they hire to independently test their food for contamination and to make sure that there's nothing there. Those testers are legally liable if they don't pick up on stuff that's in that person's food, and there can't be any relationship between those two businesses. So basically, private FDA, any business can try to be the FDA. You just can't have both businesses having the same ownership or anything like that. Sure. But you have standards. You have, like the Mormon church has their own version of food that has a stamp. The halal for Muslims has its own standard. The kosher for Jews has its own standard. You could just have different standards that operate within the marketplace to keep things like that happening. So the government is mandating a baseline of quality in the market, but it's operating with full freedom and autonomy. So there's no government agency in charge.
I think that's like a perfect solution right there, because right now what you have is a extreme, and that's one of the things I wanted to talk about too, is there's like a complete, extreme conflict of interest when you have collusion between these corporations and government entities. So like the FDA is a real prime example of that, especially with what they're pushing now with the jab juice, right? I'm being real careful with what I say because I know that Instagram's algorithms are always listening in. So we'll call
it the Pfizer Love Tap.
Yeah, the holy moly donut shot. All right. So yeah, I mean, essentially, you have collusion between government entities, private corporations, and bureaucratic agencies, and it all kind of comes down to them colluding with each other on what benefits them most, and not the people, right? Whereas if these things in
cahoots with the free-ish cultural institutions that are fully on board with their mission.
They gotta be able to manipulate culture, because politics is always downwind from culture, right? So they gotta be able to.
You have to have the people. The people have to submit voluntarily.
Right. So now they're using like Twitterati, blue check mark, people to influence that and stuff like that. So, and the thing is like one good example of that is Dr. Fauci's wife being the director of the NIH, and her job was actually to hire the people who are working within the FDA that are approving certain drugs and treatments, and they're all kind of working in collusion with Pfizer and Merck and Johnson and Johnson.
Here's how you know the whole vaccine thing is not about vaccinating people. And well, it's a vaccine. We'll call it a vaccine. It's exactly what they say. Here's how. So what often with these conspiracy theory issues, some of the conspiracies, quote unquote, or the dirty crap is in your face. Yeah. Here is an example of it.
It's not even theoretical.
Yeah, here's an example of it. If you wanted to most effectively vaccinate the population, you would test to see who's already had the disease. So you don't give them a vaccine when they don't need the immunity. You just make it, and the white blood cell tests are cheaper than any of the other tests. So it'd be cheaper, and you'd be able to screen everyone that's already had the disease before they go and then get the vaccine. So it's a much more effective vaccine distribution. But you make less money that way because you're not putting out as much product. And
That's
that's why
the
it wasn't done that way.
that's the kicker right
And
there.
I'm bonehead Joe Schmo Jordan Farmer from nowhere, and I figured that out in 5 seconds.
Bro, I dropped out of high school and college, bro.
I,
So it's
I
like,
did too, kind of. I,
yeah,
I graduated officially in January of 2013, and I dropped out of the second semester of college halfway through.
so
So
you're a
me and you
young
are
guy. How old are you, man?
27, 27. I'm a young
27.
guy.
Yeah, there you go. I was gonna say yeah, because I was like class of 2004. I would have been class of 2004 had I graduated. But yeah, so I mean that's the
What
thing, though.
what
I mean,
happened with you? Did you? Because you're a smart guy, so it wasn't a lack of an intellect thing. What was it? You
you
just
you
weren't
are
into it?
you already know, bro. I'm a Sigma male. What did you say earlier? What did you feel about school?
A waste of time.
I didn't need them, bro.
Didn't need it. Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
All right.
100%.
I guess that
So
answers
yeah,
that.
yeah, it's a short answer.
It's kind of, it's funny. You feel like an asshole when you ask a question you know the answer to, but you
No,
know,
that was a good question, right? Because you didn't really know, but I when you said that earlier, I was like, yeah, I'm so on board with that. It's exactly how I felt my whole. Like I'll be honest with you, I'll share a quick story, man. When I was younger, obviously I was far advanced intellectually, and this was noticed. The people inside the school and the administration are paid to notice these things. They got programs and stuff. Now remember, these are government operated public institutions. So the government has standards, and people that far exceed them standards, the government for some reason takes a very close interest in those people. So when I was about in the third grade, my aunt was actually my teacher. My aunt was a school teacher here in Tucson, and my aunt was my teacher in the third grade, and she noticed, what my mom had been telling her, what my previous teachers had mentioned. My school record showed it was just like uh, far beyond what the standards were for my grade, my grade level. And my aunt suggested to the school and to my mom in a conference that they placed me into a program she was aware of. At the time, it was called the SUN program. And don't ask me what that stood for. It was an acronym, but I have no idea what it meant. But it was called the SUN program. This was inside the Tucson Unified School District. Or I'm sorry, no, this was inside Sunnyside Unified School District. And once a week with this program, they would take children from multiple school districts, and they would take one or two who meet this criteria from each school, and they would take them, I believe every Wednesday, we would meet at a different bus stop in the morning and get on a bus that would take us to a different school in a different district. And this school had these portables outside where all of us would meet. Now, we would go in and have lunch at the same time as the other kids, and we were able to participate in some of the activities they had in the auditorium. But for the most part, we were separated from the rest of the kids in that school and kept inside of uh, uh, these portable stations. And inside of these portable stations, the level of learning and the things that we were doing were far beyond anything that they were teaching us in regular school. So just to give you an example, when I was in the third grade in the SUN program, they were teaching my friends the basics of, I believe, single digit multiplication at my regular school. And inside these portables, I was being taught how to program streetlights. So I remember at one point they asked us to come up with a solution for a common problem. But they let us have so much free reign. In the schools, they're like cattle, and being led in a certain direction, told what to do. That's why we probably didn't like it very much, right? Because with that Sigma personality type, you have your own way carved out for you, or you're not interested. So
so one time, this is a funny little story. I got tired of telling the teacher when he made a mistake in math class, and I got tired of always answering questions because I would get weird looks, and like if I was happy because I got something correct and I smiled while answering, I felt like an ass. and I got treated like an ass.
Sure.
At least from some of the kids, the dumb ones in particular. No, like no offense, but the dumbest kid that I remember coming across in one of those classes hated my guts, because I was lazy, whatever that actually meant. But anyways, I let the teacher get about 8 minutes into the math problem where he made a mistake early on, and then like by the time he got in the end, realized he had the wrong answer. I just pointed out what he did wrong immediately, and I was like, and like that was my experience in school, was just sitting there like,
100%. Same here, bro. And imagine how those people would have treated you if you had that same, if you were really like just as good at like dribbling a ball. They all would have loved
they would
you.
have been my
They
best friend.
loved you, bro. You could jump really high, run really fast, right? You're really strong. They loved
Yeah,
you.
once I started
You're
lifting
genius.
weights, I got a lot of new friends.
Yeah,
once
bro.
I
Like,
once I
and, and for me, it was crazy because when I was in high school, middle school, and high school, I started gang banging. I was like a real active gang member, bro. And that's when like things blew up for me, and people were like, everyone wanted to be my friend. They were like, be hanging out with the tough guys who did whatever we wanted, and I felt like I fit right in with that because of the personality type. I just made my own way, did whatever I
Mhm.
wanted. Nobody could tell me what to do, and if anyone tried to force me to do something, we're gonna fight. So it was kind of like I fit in with that. People at that point, people just respected me a lot more. Whereas before, it was just like, yeah, I was that asshole who just thought he knew everything. So after a while, when people think that you might like stab them or something, they stop treating me like a jerk. And
sometimes people confuse sometimes people that just know more than other people think they know everything. And
yeah,
sometimes people think you're a know-it-all when you just recognize that you have maybe better insights than they do, and they're very offended by that idea.
you know,
Especially if you're a kid and they're an adult and
oh
they
my
think they
god,
need to be in this position of superiority. And when that doesn't match up, some of them don't like that at all.
that was the worst. That was the worst. Was dealing with it. I got corrected all the time. They're like, you don't correct adults, but they're wrong. No, you don't correct adults. That's when I started learning about like the dangers of authority, bro, like authoritarianism. I was really young when I grasped that concept because I was like,
I've
listen,
always
look,
hated the power tripping authoritative types. If you like your power and you flex it on someone, even in a business context, I can't let it go. I have to push back and like be like, what do you
yeah,
mean? Like even if I haven't come across a situation where I was like lying, but I did have a situation where I kind of like argued just for the sake of arguing because the dude was just being a prick, and I felt like someone had to push up. And the
but
thing is,
that's
once you do that, two or three other people are behind you, just ready to do it once someone else does it first. So
yeah,
it
they just
serves
weren't
that
brave
purpose
enough to
too.
speak up for themselves. And then when they saw you do it, they're like, okay, I got somebody I can like.
Yeah.
You're leading the charge, then you're going to take the brunt of the consequences. But I'm going to back you up because I feel the same way. Yeah, yeah, it's real interesting, man. So what happened to me when I was younger, and this probably did not help at all with my, as a Sigma male, my inherent distrust of authority figures. But the school I was going to, like I said, man, they let us have free reign. The reason I loved the program was because it was like, if we had a science project at regular school, they would pick the project for you. They would tell you how to execute it, tell you what to do, and then grade everybody like on the same level. Not at this Sun program. It was like, we want you guys to think of a problem, a common issue with something, and then create a solution for it. And you literally have to create something like an invention that's going to fix this. And you can like create a prototype, bring it into class, make sure it's workable, testable. Like that was like it. And it was like we got to do whatever we wanted. The amount of different things I saw that year for the I called it our invention fair or whatever it was. The things that I saw,
It's
man, the
called
kids brought in.
child labor and research and development.
That's that's where I'm going with this, bro. So what happened was, okay, so I have an intense fear of drowning, right? Since I was young, had an intense fear of drowning. I hated the idea of that. And I read about how life vests and inner tubes, if you're a certain height, and especially like for children, it's problematic. They get turned over. They'll just float there and drown and die. Nobody can help them. They can't turn themselves back over. There's no counterbalance to the weight. So what I did was I invented a flotation device. And in my mind, it was real simple. I knew it would work. It was real simple. What I did was I got this idea from being in California. I was visiting my cousins one day, and they were boogie boarding. You ever seen boogie boarding off the coast, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my cousins would hold the boards, just are real small. They go, you hold them around at your waist and you grab them like this, and you swim, and you can push yourself underwater, and it pops you back up. So you're always facing up, out of the water. And I'm looking at that, and I'm like, what if I created a safety flotation device that was similar to that, but it was kind of like a half of a boogie board. It was more like a flotation device that looked kind of like a vest, but it was shaped in a way where I could, like, it had straps on it. You could strap it around your waist. And in this way, you're holding on to it. Now, if you went backwards, you're not going to flip all the way around. And then you can't go forwards. If somehow someone pushed you all the way underwater, it would just flip you right back up. So no matter what, you're either facing your nose facing up or facing forward at a 45-degree angle, either way. So even if you were passed out, the likelihood of you drowning was extremely unlikely. It was not likely. So I created that. I drew it out. I got some materials from a fabric store, and we were poor as shit. I lived in a trailer. My mom went and spent like a couple dollars on some material for me. I asked her told her what I needed. I created a prototype. I didn't even get to finish it completely, but I knew that it would work. And I went and I submitted that to the fair, and I ended up getting the certificate for that. Next to me, this kid created a fluorescent coating. It's a fluorescent coating that is applied to doorknobs. So it collects the sun rays at night, and during the day, it glows at night, so you don't miss when you put your key in. That is sold today in home improvement stores, as well as my invention. Because when I was 19 years old, I went to go visit a friend who worked at Leslie Pool Supplies. I was going to go pick him up. We're going to hang out and party. And I walk into the store, dude, and I'm walking, just minding my business, and I passed the shelf, and I stopped and walked back, and I looked. Fuck me, man. That was my invention with a U.S. patent number on it.
That's crazy. That's crazy, man. Yeah. I mean, if you can identify brilliant kids at a young age and just put them on stuff and they can, invent stuff out of nothing. I wanted to be an inventor as a kid. That was my sort of my designated thing. And there's a couple of things that I thought of, one of which wasn't that inventive, but one of which was, that later on I saw in different types of technology. I thought if a generator, when it's getting spun, can generate electricity, then as a car is slowing down, it should be able to catch that electricity with the generator and collect it. Toyota and their Prius systems have this exact technology now.
Yes.
And the other one was just Google Glasses, just the idea of a little mini lens about this big on top of your glasses, and it was connected to the internet. You could watch videos and stuff like that. That's not, I'm sure a million people have thought of that. It's not, new. It was just the first person to, and it's not even that popular. That kind of died. Google, no one liked that product.
It makes you wonder if Nikola Tesla was right about his source of creativity when he said there was something at the core of existence that he was able to tap into. He said, I don't know what it is or how it works, but I guarantee you it's there. I know it's there. So it's kind of like, I sometimes imagine consciousness being like a field of singularity, and we all just kind of exist within that field of singularity. And so I study psychotherapy and Eastern philosophy. I found them to be very similar, like Buddhism, Zen Buddhism, and psychotherapy, because it has to deal with understanding of the mind. And I feel like the ego is a mechanism that kind of at times makes us believe it's not just like a forming of an identity, but it kind of like gives us this maybe a false image of how our avatar is operating. So we think like the collection of thoughts is something that exists inside of our head. And what if that's not the case? What if the thoughts are part of that field of consciousness and our awareness is just bringing certain things captive here and there? So anybody can come up with the same ideas. You ever had someone thinking the exact same you're thinking at the exact same time? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, so it's like, are the thoughts really ours? Where are the thoughts coming from? So I read a book about this that kind of expounded on that, and it was called Thoughts Without a Thinker. And it was literally a psychotherapist Western perspective of Eastern philosophical principles, and where they talk about these thoughts being more of a general field, and the thoughts are occurring. So it's just a matter of grammar to believe that a verb has to have a subject. So if there's thinking happening, there must be a thinker. What if that's not the case? What if thinking happens just like your heart beats, just like your nails grow, just like your hairs grow, and you're nothing more but an observer to all this activity? That kind of put things into a different perspective. So
you could be coming up with some of these ideas, and these ideas are just out there in that general field of consciousness. If someone else beats you to it, they actually manifest into reality, because action becomes that bridge from thoughts to reality. And so
Yeah.
somebody took that action and developed that stuff. They were the first ones to come up with it, but
Maybe
that could have been me.
maybe potential instead of just thoughts, because that it operates outside of the sphere of thoughts. It's with, you know, the so I my essential worldview is that of an emergent worldview,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like a pyramid where there's a whole layer of quarks, and then subatomic particles, and then atoms, and each time there's infinite variation being created, and then within select specific sets of circumstances and combinations within all those variations can break through and create a next layer of reality. And it just keeps happening and happening and happening. And eventually animals gain consciousness, and you have the universe looking back on itself. And
Yeah,
I think that the reason why things exist the way they do and not it's an amorphous blob is because an amorphous blob of vague, foggy nothingness is really boring. Like
and it wouldn't, and
God
it
or
wouldn't,
whatever it
and
was
it,
that existed in the
yeah,
formless void wouldn't want to stay in that position. Our lives are much more interesting than the formless void.
yeah, because
And
it wouldn't
so
produce very
ideas are
specific
pulling from the
experiences. It wouldn't
yeah, so
produce very specific experiences. Yeah.
we have an established set of known territory and the collective knowledge, and then there's potential knowledge that's always been there and existed out of it that we're pulling into it, and same
Mm-hmm.
thing with creating new things. And so bringing it kind of full circle, if God is the creator and divinity is within each man, then the divine thing that each man can do is to create.
Yes.
And where creation comes from is divinity itself. It's all intertwined there in that concept, and I believe it's divinely true. I believe it is the deepest truth of the universe, that what gives us that genuine, meaningful spark beyond the other animals is our damn near infinite capacity to create or produce. So creation is when you make something new no one else has created. You can also create things other people have created by like doing a painting someone else has done in your own way or whatever. And so it's our creative and our productive capacity that gives human beings their life. And the thing about that, and this brings it back to, say, the abortion issue, is the value of that human life is their potential the entire way through and all those experiences and everything. So it's that 80 years of potential you're weighing against 9 months of inconvenience.
Yeah, it's the intrinsic value of life, right?
Yeah.
You know, I just recently saw this. Science has discovered that at conception, inside of a human, I guess you would call it a zygote. So at the moment, at the moment that there's that fusion or fission that occurs between the male and female gamete, it produces an actual flash of light. This doesn't happen with animal conceptions. It only happens with humans, or the only animals that happens to. You can look into that. The Bible says that we are created in light. It says God is light, we're created in light. I think that your way of explaining things, even though it's a little different than the way I explain it, is pretty much identical. Because I feel this is something that is taught within a lot of esoteric circles. So for people who may have an understanding of, like, say, Rosicrucianism or Masonic occultic teachings about the genesis of life and the genius of reality, the universe, the subconscious, and all that stuff, God being the architect of the universe, it describes pretty much what you described in those layers. Only there's more of a mirroring between the physical and the non-physical. So there would be, like, the same way you're describing the manifestation of physical chemical matter. There's a hierarchy that's a pyramid structure that also pertains to, like, the spirituality of it. So, like, there's a world of virgin spirits, and they become individual souls, and then they actually meet with the third dimensional physical reality, become these physical avatars that we are. And it's very interesting. I've read a lot of books in my time, and I think I don't know if you have any experience with any esotericism, or do you know any Masons or anything like that, bro. You might want to check out some of these readings. I know there's a lot of like taboo and stigma stuff about the occult and masonry and stuff, but I'm not a Mason, but I just found the writings fascinating.
I believe so. Here's the crux of it with all scripture, all sources of divine truth. It's all there's two wheelhouses. There's the wheelhouse of describing the world as it is, and there's the wheelhouse of the ideal way to live as a human being.
Mhm.
And so one I consider sort of the mother emergent animal side and like the world, and the other one is the higher order ideals that we're sort of striving for. Um, and so um, what you're sort of uh, I lost it. Damn it!
It was right
But
there.
I
Don't you hate
want
when that
you.
happens?
But I want you to send me those books on those types of
Sure.
philosophy. So here's the thing: I'm not a reader. I listen to and watch smart people, and
I'm
that's
sure
been
by
my
now,
my
I'm sure
great
by now you can
trick.
find this all on YouTube, bro. Like I
Yeah.
read this, I read these books like 12 years ago. So I'm sure by now you can find all this stuff on YouTube. That's even why I got this tattoo right here, bro.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I know where I was. So, um, all these sources of divine truth are not the truth itself. It's a documentation, a mirroring, a reflection of truth that's always
Mhm.
existed in the structure of reality itself from the very beginning. So, like all
Yeah,
this potential, when you create a software program, all of the potential of the software program till the end of time is there at the
in the
beginning
code.
in
Yeah,
the structure. So I think the world is the exact same way. So that, and like no one disagrees. Science is the study of the physical material structure. Religion is basically the
non-physical.
philosophical, theological, the more spiritual side. But they're both trying to. And so a car manual is, you can have the car manual and that helps you sort of understand how to operate with the car and maintain it. But it's not the car itself. And if you have just the manual, you don't have anything. And if you have a car but you don't have the manual, you don't know what to do with the car. And so the Bible and these scriptures are very much the same way. They're reflecting the truth. And with or without those documentations, the truth was sort of always there from the beginning. And it's just discovering truth. It's not like establishing truth in that
Yeah,
sense.
that's
Um,
something. That model is something that I found in Eastern philosophy too, in Buddhism, where they talk about like the moon reflecting off of a pool of water, right?
mhm.
Where you're looking at the moon, but you're not looking at the moon. It's just a reflection of the moon, right?
Yeah,
But everything that's a
yeah.
truth about the moon is in its detail is being reflected off that pool of water,
There's a
even
good
though you're
there's a
not
good
looking at it.
metaphor to explain the difference here between sort of that and the material world versus the world we actually live in. Like uh I could describe to you radio waves and metal, like the metal composition of a radio, as it stands right there in front of you. I could describe to you how sound waves work and how there's certain harmonies and all these. I could give you all this user manual stuff about music, and it won't touch 2% of what it's like to listen to a song that moves you. And
Yeah,
that's the difference. That's the difference between the materialist world and the real world that we live in, that
you
we
know,
exist.
it's amazing too because when we really sit down and talk about it, if we were to get like real, I feel like me and you could probably go into this for hours because I'm fascinated by this stuff. But there's always that philosophical question of what is reality, right? Because if it's the chemical matter, you're talking about little puffy
I
clouds
have
of
a
probability.
spicy answer to that question, but go ahead.
Well, I mean, think about this. So like the atoms are and the particles are practically empty, right? They're vacuums of space. So you're talking about puffy clouds of probability. So, but when you touch a table, it feels real. When you sit in the chair, it feels real. When you're in your car driving, it feels real. The money in your hand, when you spend it, feels very real. So the question comes down to is reality being perpetuated by the chemical reality or matter itself, or is it the experience that which is reality, right? So the rock in your foot don't ever actually meet because the electrons between the particles don't allow them to make contact. This is how the two objects are separated in the space of reality, but it still hurts your damn toe when you drop the rock on it. The
Yeah,
pain and the experience of that is absolutely real to the observer.
yeah, absolutely. So my sort of spicy answer to the, is it really God? Is it really stimulation? Is it really the Matrix? Is it really any of these things? At some point, I sat back and I was like, it doesn't matter. Whatever answer you're given, imagine you're given that answer. What do you do then? You're still left with the problem of what you're going to do in this world,
Yep.
anyways. And those are different lines of thinking. What I do here versus how this got here, different entire spheres of inquiry. And
I got
so
a spicy
somewhere
answer to
along the
that
way, I was
myself.
just like, it doesn't fucking matter, man.
Yeah, no, you're right. But I got a spicy answer to that myself when I'm having these conversations with people. You know what I tell them? They're all true simultaneously. It's all simultaneously true. Because it's like Schrodinger's cat scenario.
Because again, it's our words are those reflections too. Our words are describing reality. They're not reality itself. So it's an imperfect, there's an inference made to, like, words are how we describe ideas and keep track of what ideas are by their name, but those aren't the ideas themselves. And so, very much like we're describing the same thing a million different ways, and none of the answers individually matter. It's sort of the collective answer that matters.
Yeah, what do you do trying to name the nameless, right? How can you name the nameless? I'll be like this. Here's a good way to explain it too. If this is some kind of a divine concept, if I were to try to reach out into that general field of singularity of consciousness to draw from it the inspiration utter the name, I have to borrow the name and concept from the source of it itself. So how can I use that? It's instant. The moment I open my mouth, it's blasphemy. You can't name the nameless.
Yeah, and that the wisdom of understanding that you can never concretely define what is beyond our perceptions is important. Because there's plenty of people, whether you're Christian, you're atheist, whatever, that get militant with the way they see the world. And whether you believe in magic or just science or any of it, we don't, to me, you can describe electrons and have all these, chemical structures and these illustrations and all these things. It's still magic, bro. You just have different words for it. The fact that gravity works the way it does, the fact that all these individual principles and forces and mathematical equations and everything adds up to the world that actually functions is magic in and of itself. And to think anything else, and to think you can describe how something works, but that doesn't mean you understand why that something works. So you could describe electricity, but why does electricity work the way it does? That's fucking voodoo magic, man. We don't know. We don't know why it all works, but we know it does. We know there is structure. We don't know why there's structure, and we have to figure that out.
I think the amazing thing to how you just kind of said, like you said, people when your beliefs become concrete, anything that challenges that, people become militant about it, very defensive. The fact of the matter is that when you get to the point where it's like, I accept it all simultaneously as being true, because it doesn't matter which one is actually true. There's something very liberating about that to you as an individual. There's something so liberating about it where people become slaves to dogma. And I was walking home from work one day and I was thinking about all this conspiracy theory stuff I was diving into. I got pretty deep into it, losing my mind, man. And all I thought to myself was, it really doesn't matter how much deception is out there if I don't recognize and call out the deception in my own heart. Do I deceive myself? I think that was it was a revelation for me at that moment where I was just like, okay, I kind of got to be my own best friend here instead of my own worst enemy. I think what it comes down to is that subconscious level where you kind of train your mind to work for you instead of you becoming a slave to your own ideologies. You are able to mold yourself the way that you need to be. It's a superpower that's given to us as men, as human beings, so that we don't become ensnared and enslaved in our own deceit. And it's very liberating to come to that conclusion that ultimately none of it really matters. You're still going to have to make choices and make decisions and figure out what you're going to do in your life. And that's what you focus on. You focus on that mission, and you don't worry so much about having the answers to everything that everybody's looking for. If we had the answers, it's almost like our journey stops. Why would you want the journey to stop? The journey is the fun part. That's the experience, bro. That's what we're here for. That's what we learn from. That's how we grow.
There's a parallel between working for yourself and thinking for yourself, where people that opt out of those are opting out of those because it's too risky, it's too much work, and they're okay without doing it. They're happy to outsource the craziness of running a business and just have a job, and then when they lose their job, they'll just find another job, but they can always do that. And when you have a business and it fails, you can just start another business, but there's more consequences to that. Sure. Same thing with thinking. If you undertake your own, you're going to say you're going to do your own thinking, you can't be lazy and say that. You have to be prepared to sit back and spend a lot of time trying to think about things, because often it takes 20 hours of reflecting on a particular idea to break through to some next layer. Like it doesn't
Yeah,
come in 5 minutes. It's not. You can teach other people. Like I can explain my deep. It took me 10 years to come to a deep conclusion about the nature of the universe. I can lay it out in 30 seconds. Like that. That's the difference. 10 years and 30
yep.
seconds. Like
Yeah,
so
it's like
when
when you get
you're
to really,
venturing out on your own to create something new, it's an undertaking.
yeah, that's what you just said right now is like on point, bro, because it's like Albert Einstein said, if you can't explain something to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it well enough. So it's like the people
That
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 really,
that quote has inspired much of the way I try to be in my own life, understanding that if you can't communicate an idea well, you probably don't know it. And
yeah,
it's the most effective way to communicate. Like if you're a more effective communicator of an idea, you're a better representative of the idea. That's like a
yeah,
reflected version of the same statement, so to speak.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think that with Albert Einstein and the way that he would discuss how he came to being as he didn't view intelligence as something that was like you were lucky enough to be born with it. He said, "I'm not a genius at all. I'm just infinitely curious." I think that with enough curiosity that it drives a man to the mysterious, and then you start diving deep into it, you get to that point where, like you said, you get through a breakthrough period and you're, oh, I fully understand it now, and then you
It's
are able to
it's kind of like
describe it.
RAM on a computer. We all have different RAM, so it might take you longer to grasp a concept than
Yeah,
me. Might take you less time to grasp. But if you spend enough time trying to grasp the concept, eventually that image will download.
yeah, we went
Eventually, all
through
the
it.
data comes in. It all strings together. The file's been compressed, and you got it. Boom.
Yeah,
You
it's
know, and
like
often
right now
most
I
of the
could.
things like
It's like right now I could download a YouTube video using a YouTube to MP3 or a YouTube downloader in like seconds, whereas
yeah,
like years ago on LimeWire it took me like 3 days to download.
yeah. God forbid you had to upload a
Hey, can you
video
hear me,
game.
man?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
All right, I was getting a call right now. Hold on 1 second, man.
Oh, you're good. You're good, bro.
Me now?
Yeah, I can hear you, bro.
All right, cool. Hey, I'm gonna have to jump off here in a second. My buddy's coming. I was borrowing his microphone here. I gotta give it back to
Oh,
him right
okay.
now.
Yeah, no worries, bro. Yeah, it's been great. We'll definitely do it again. We barely got into what we were planning on talking about,
I know, man.
which is
We said
great.
that was
Which
gonna
is
happen
this has
soon.
gone as well as I was hoping. I had a feeling. So, yeah, and
Cool.
I just want to say, and there's no other way. There's no way to do this without shame. So I'm sorry. I feel very shameful. Any networking help me get into this game more effectively. Help you can offer me. I will gladly take it. You know,
Yeah, I get
I am
people all the
not
time. I
worthy.
get people all the time that I don't have time between working, doing businesses, my other hobbies, and being a single dad. I can't get around to a lot of interviews, man. Like I've had a few over the last year. I pretty much gave up over this last year. So I'm gonna get back into building my YouTube channel, but I still got a lot of interesting people I think that you'd enjoy speaking to. So I'll definitely be sending them your way.
Yeah, yeah. I'll take them all, bro. I'll take them all. I'll take all the smoke. I'll take all the love. I'll take all of it.
Perfect,
I
man.
love the full thing. So
Well, I
you have a
appreciate
good
you
one,
giving me
brother.
this
This has been an
opportunity,
honor.
man. Yeah, absolutely. I thank you so much for letting me come on here, bro. I had a great time, and we'll definitely do it again soon.
Yeah.
All right,
Peace.
later.
Who's still here with me? I think we'll call it here.